Today I have attorney Jamison Allen with me, and attorney Allen is fresh off a jury trial victory. It was a personal injury case, and essentially the judge asked us if we were ready to go to trial. Jamison stood up and said, ready for trial. So did the defense attorney. And to my understanding, we might have actually been the first civil jury trial in central Indiana, if not the state, since the pandemic started back in March 2020. So had a fantastic result. Jamison and I sat down and we said, hey, what could we have done better? And Jamison started writing down, tips and tricks for doing trials, doing a jury trial during a pandemic. And as soon as we sat down and we started going over this, we thought, man, this would be a great video. And so Jamison, I'm doing a lot of the talking, but you're the main show here.
That's all right. You were great at trial. You deserve to do some talking.
Oh man, you're making me smile. But Jamison, we're not here to tell war stories. We're not here to talk about how awesome we did. The purpose of this video, or even podcast, is basically how were things different during a pandemic than versus not a pandemic. So, we're trying to make these videos for people who are getting ready for trial, whether it's criminal or civil, basically how they can better prepare themselves. So Jamison, how was your trial preparation different prepping during COVID-19?
We end up spending a lot of time thinking of questions and asking questions focused on the pandemic. So you still need to do everything, of course, that you normally would have done. You know how to try a case. So, rely on that, rely on your confidence, knowing that you're an experienced litigator. But you have to leave time and focus on what's different now. So the questions that we thought of and we asked the judge in the pretrial conference had to do with jury selection. How much time do we get? Can we get more time? Because now we have to talk about pandemic questions along with all the questions we always have to ask. Can we get an extra alternate? We lost a juror during the trial because she got some symptoms that were borderline, coronavirus anyway, but she was out and an alternate was in. If we would have lost some more jurors, we might have had a mistrial. So you got to think about that. You have to think about how the exhibits are going to be handled. What is the court going to require in regard to handling the exhibit, because maybe you have to use hand sanitizer, or maybe it's a good idea to use it even if the court doesn't require it. Maybe you cannot approach the witness like you thought. So lots of questions. You just need to stop and think about procedure and involve the court and opposing counsel and figure these kind of questions out ahead of time.
And we were so lucky. I don't want to name the court or anything like that, but the judge and court staff, in my opinion, we couldn't have asked for just more understanding and roll with the punches type individuals. And
you're absolutely right. And so in regard to the court staff, I'll say this. It's always important to make friends with the court staff, right? But during a pandemic, I think it's even more important because there could be an issue, or there were issues that popped up in which the court staff are going to be the ones who prevent your problem and solve your problem. So, and that's actually one thing I think across the board that we noticed is that any problem or any advice that you would normally give, a lot of times they're going to pop up, or they can pop up during a trial during the pandemic. But during the pandemic, the consequences are going to be higher, or the problem's going to be just a little bit different. And so, when you prepare your clients and your witnesses, you have to go through everything you normally do, but you also have to throw in all the issues about the exhibit and how to approach the witness stand. And maybe it's a different kind of chair. Maybe they have the witnesses come through a different door because the jury's going to be in the gallery now, and the witnesses can't come through the normal process. It's all types of issues that we never have to think about, that you have to stop and think about before your trial.
Jamison, so that's an excellent segue. So, we talked about just general, pre-trial stuff. How was preparing for jury selection different than before? Give us a little sample of that.
I think the first thing you have to do is think about how your normal approach or strategy can be changed. maybe has to be changed in some ways. But otherwise, maybe there's an advantage perhaps from the coronavirus. For example, if you typically do not want to have medical experience in your jury for whatever reason, now you might be able to use some questions and some strategy to encourage the court and opposing counsel to allow medical people to not serve. Let's just move past these folks and let them go back to the clinic and do what they need to be doing. Maybe there's some way, something the pandemic offers that you can use as an analogy, different from what you normally do. Then of course you got the big issue of the mask, right? So the masks are very political. You have to think about that. Is the mask issue, how's that going to play one way or the other, and how are you going to handle it if it goes one direction or the other? And one thing that we figured out is we wanted the jury to see our faces. So the judge, in our case, allowed us to take off our mask during select portions of the trial, including jury selection. So I was going to do that so the jury could see my face, make a connection, make sure they can understand me. But then the judge, during his spiel to the jurors, said, "I'm not going to take off my mask." So we ended up changing strategy, and I found a way to take off my mask by doing a sound check to make sure the jury could hear me properly, and then also gave me a chance for the jury to see my face.
I will say that the chances for unmasked situations during the trial were few and far between. And when you basically ask the jury, hey, which one works better, cloth or paper? And they got to kind of get involved. And, you did an excellent job getting folks involved. Jamison, what was your strategy for dealing with some of the anxiety that we knew some of the jurors? I mean, the jury questionnaires, the county we did the normal questionnaire, and they had a COVID-19 questionnaire that the jurors filled out that morning. And so what was your strategy to deal with that anxiety that some people might be having?
Well, I changed my questions, normal questions somewhat, to try to make the process more open. Obviously, you want jurors to talk all the time. But this also was one of those situations where the normal rule is even heightened during a trial now. And so we needed to get the jurors relaxed, get them talking about themselves, even talking about issues that we might not think are directly relevant to the trial, at least on their face. And I think that strategy seemed to work and seemed to make the jurors open up.
Sitting second chair with you, I watched how, Jamison, you just have such a natural way of communicating and connecting. And I saw jurors that started off, but I was like, no way they want to be here. And you were so just easy to relate to. I saw them open up to you, and it was amazing how you did that.
We worked together to draft a strategy, a theme for the trial, and make that connect with throughout jury selection.
So Jamison, we talked about just like some pre-trial, and we talked about jury selection. What do you have to deal with in opening because of the pandemic? Was that changed at all in your opinion?
It did. I would say jury selection is a lot more, or the difference in the jury selection are greater than the differences in opening from what we experienced. But the opening was different in the sense that, well, one, you want to try to find a way to make the jurors see your face if you can at some point, as I mentioned. But we noticed some jury cues, body language, and certain reactions that seemed to indicate, oh, this juror is not comfortable with me moving that close to the gallery. And so you have to make adjustments. And some jurors will be comfortable, some jurors will not. Another issue is that you want to find a way to use visual evidence throughout your trial, which of course, again, is always a good strategy. Another one of those rules, it's more heightened now. If the jury is going to have any problem at any point hearing through a mask, visual evidence is more important.
Jamison, let's move on into witness examinations. And so this is a civil trial, and so we had live witnesses testifying at the trial itself, and then we also had doctors who we presented by videotape deposition, which is normal for injury cases. Tell me the issues you had in preparing witness examination during COVID-19.
Well, the first issue is in regard to masks. Again, masks, they're big. Masks go through the whole trial. The doctors we deposed and had on video, 2 of the 3 were done during the pandemic. And so they had the mask on during their video. And the jury never got to see their face. And so one thing that we talked about was the possibility of putting their photos up on the video, or find a way, during direct and closing as well, to put their real photo from their website up there so the jury can see their face without a mask on. The other issue is visual evidence, as I mentioned in opening, but now for sure you can get it in. Find a way to use demonstrative exhibits. Think about if there's any permissible summary you can use, any visual evidence you can highlight to mitigate the potential problem of voice not going through the mask the way that you hoped it would. And then I think exhibit logistics and how you approach, or if you approach the witness. You might have to walk by the jury. It might not look good for you to get to stand by the witness go back and forth so many times with the witness with so many exhibits. So you might need to approach that differently. And maybe even where you stand in the courtroom. Every courtroom is going to be different now because the jury might not be where you think they are. The counsel tables might not be where you think they are. So even if you've done a trial in that court, you need to go to the courtroom before the trial and strategize and figure out, oh, I need to stand back here now instead of this angle, or maybe the witness needs a swivel chair so they can turn to the jury. All these little things that maybe you haven't thought about before.
No, and we're going to hit on some of the closing thoughts at the end of this video, but I mean, even our live witnesses, I've done juries in that courthouse and courtrooms similar setup, and it was completely different. No one was in the jury box, they were in the gallery. So just the witness table was completely different. And we had a client who had a bad neck and bad shoulder. The chair was in, the chair set up by the court was to face him towards the jury box. We had to find a swivel chair, get him so he could at least talk to the jury. I mean, it's very powerful. Even if you have done 100 trials in this courtroom, you're going to have a jury trial, and you got to get in there, talk to the staff. You've got to figure out where everyone's going to be, because you can't take anything for granted. But let's go on here real quick. Closing. What were the issues you had in closing, and what would you have done a little differently had you known then what you know now?
I think I would have used some more visual highlights, and that would have been, carrying that through would have been a little stronger, finding every place in the trial to highlight some more visual evidence. Another issue would be to find some more ways to use the pandemic. I think the pandemic is a real gift to trial attorneys, because we now know there is a common shared experience between all the jurors and us. So we have something that we can relate to. So find some areas of the pandemic, some facts that fit your theme of the case. Maybe it has to do with the science changing on masks. Maybe it has to do with the lack of personal, connection. Find it and use it.
No, I love that, and I truly do believe that, we had a very good outcome in this case. So it's hard for me to be like, oh, trials during pandemic is bad. You rolled with the punches. Jamison, so give us some closing thoughts here, some general logistics. Anybody who's getting ready to do a jury trial during pandemic, during this awkward times where, we want our personal space because we don't want anyone invading that space. What are some final thoughts we have here?
Yeah, I would say practice with the mask, figure out which mask works best for you. Ideally, one that lets your voice out the most and covers the smallest amount of your face, surface area of your face. But think about that and practice. And when you practice and record yourself or have someone listen to you, you'll figure out you need to enunciate more than normal in order to have the same effect. As you mentioned, Mark, get into the courtroom. Don't make any assumptions about how the courtroom's set up or how things will proceed. Your technology might be different. You might need to bring in speakers if the court's audio is not sufficient. You might need extra extension cords because you're going to be in a different part of the room and you need to stretch all the way through. Your screen might not be in the same place, all types of issues.
Yeah, Jamison, so just real quickly, he mentioned technology. We went into a courthouse that is known for their technology. They have wall-mounted screens, they have projectors built in, but the reality is that was set up for juries to be in the jury box. All of a sudden, when juries were in the gallery, that screen was just too far away. And so, you know, we were making last-minute decisions and last-minute moves to basically get the projector closer to the gallery, and it was fine. But, you know, I will say I wasn't necessarily proud that our PowerPoint had a slight angle. It wasn't that pronounced, but had we anticipated that, because the jury literally was like, can we get it closer? Can we anyway get this closer? So, you know, we always want to give the jury what they want. So absolutely. But, you know, we were counting on using the wall. It was just, please, anybody watching this, you have to get into the courtroom. Do not make any assumptions on what has happened before, because it's a wild ride. And
yeah,
our jurors didn't even want to go into the jury room. They wanted to go, the jury room wasn't big enough. We're too close. So they put our jury, when it wasn't in the courtroom, they put it back into basically the main assembly hall.
That goes back, I think, to what I said about reading the juror cues. And so this jury ended up being more sensitive to coronavirus issues than what we anticipated for this particular county. So you have to be prepared for it to go either way. And the last thing I'll say is that body language becomes more important. It's always important. You can't become a body language expert in a few weeks or become self-aware of all your body language, but try at least a little. And then the other thing I'll say, just like an overarching advice or theme, is be yourself. Don't allow all of this craziness to change who you are as a litigator. There's a reason why you're a trial attorney. Just deal with all these issues through preparation. Your opponent has the same hurdles you have. So long as you prepare and don't let it get to you, you'll be yourself, you'll be confident, you'll give the jury confidence to forget about the pandemic, and you'll have your best shot at a good result.
What amazing final advice. Be yourself. And watching you in trial, Jamison, absolutely amazing. You are legitimately, you are you, no matter where you're at and what situation you're in. And you're just so easy to like and talk to. And I am convinced that is a huge part of the success. Thank you for sharing your insights on this. Anybody has any questions, email us. We love talking. We love talking with other trial attorneys. We talk to anybody, really. But, you know, don't be scared of jury trials during pandemic. Final thing is, we did have a jury consultant, Lisa Mitchell, help us. You know, we were definitely nervous about picking a jury with masks on, because the jury had masks on, attorneys had masks on, the judge had masks on. So we brought in a bilanguage expert. We truly believe that her input was invaluable. And
yes, yeah, we're very appreciative of her contributions.
Absolutely. Her contact information will be in the description. That's it. Be safe. Always take care of each other. Have a great day.